This video is brought to you by the brand new MSI GT77 laptop, which sports an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 Ti. I've been using this for the past month as my main driver since my PC died. Sad times, but this laptop has made it a hell of a lot easier. Click the link below to check it out or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Have you ever wanted to be a jerk cat? You can ruin people's rugs. Ruin people's couches. Ruin people's board games. Ruin people's walls. Yeah, take that wall. Oh shit. Hell, you can even ruin people's parties. No, it's not Untitled Cat Game, it's Stray. Okay, so I'm giving you a one-sided view of cats, but it comes from a deep place that I suspect the majority of people who have clicked on this video are not gonna like. But here it is, you ready? I do not like cats. I know, I'm a terrible person, I get it, but the truth is, I don't like cats and they don't seem to like me either. No cat has ever come up to me and done that thing where they rub themselves against your leg and purr. When cats see me, they're like, and then they walk away. Reminds me of my high school years for different but related reasons. So, I tell you this as important context, so you don't think for a second that my love of this game has anything to do with some sort of inherent cat bias. It's actually the exact opposite. Stray had to overcome my deeply entrenched, decades-long hostility to cats. And overcome it, it did, because Stray is low-key wonderful, and the 4.5 hours that I spent with it were just such a delight in almost every way. Stray kind of took us all by surprise when it debuted last year because it was one of those premises so immediately compelling that you wonder why no one had done it previously. Play as a cat, without the aid of a vacuum cleaner. But it was Stray's setting which immediately struck a chord. A dense, stylized, beautifully lit sci-fi world, its robot denizens seemingly hanging on by a thread after the vanishing of humanity. You immediately wanted to be this cat exploring this world, and I went in expecting just that, and I would have been fine with that. But I actually found a lot more here. I found a wonderfully designed traversal and exploration system, some really well-paced environmental and narrative puzzles, some very tense stealth and chase sequences, a thrifty but moving story of defiance and companionship, and one of the best soundtracks of the year. One that I will absolutely be adding to my regular rotation of stuff I listen to while I'm working. Stray does have some challenges in terms of technical performance, and some of its controls can feel a little stiff and restrictive, but these issues aside, Stray is just really, really nice. It's just a nice game, and I think almost anyone is gonna like this, but that cat people are gonna really, really love it. Briefly, I tested Stray on 4 systems: the PS5, an RTX 2080 Ti PC, an RTX 3080 Ti laptop, and the Steam Deck. The majority of my playthrough was on the 2080 Ti, where it was running at 1440p most of the time, but I also tested both 4K and 1080p. Sadly, and it's by far and away my biggest disappointment with Stray, this is not a great PC port. A linear adventure game like this, running at 1440p on an RTX 2080 Ti should be able to run rings around that. I really struggled to get above 50 FPS though, and that was an extremely unreliable 50 FPS, where the game would chug down to as low as around 20 FPS when I was in dense urban environments with lots of geometry, lighting, and reflections. Unfortunately, the PC options are limited, and even then I noticed that tweaking them didn't give me much more stability. They did get me closer to that 60 FPS mark when nothing much was happening, or when I was in a small space, but I'd still get those huge fluctuations when entering other areas. I mean, even dropping down to 1080p resolution didn't make too much of a difference. Playing on the RTX 3080 Ti laptop did result in a higher average frame rate, but it also didn't provide much more stability. Playing on the Steam Deck was okay so long as you capped the refresh rate at 40, dropped the resolution scaling down to 70%, and kept settings at medium. At that point, you could expect a relatively steady 40 FPS, but again, there would be regular dips. As for PS5, I did find it to be more stable and without any major sacrifice in visual fidelity versus the PC versions. So in this instance, I kind of felt the PS5 version is the one to go with, at least until the developers can put some more work into PC optimization. Bottom line though, should you hold off on Stray for PC until it runs better? Look, I'm gonna say that I'm really forgiving when it comes to this sort of stuff, but I did sort of hit my limit here with Stray. Sable, for example, that did not run well at all. But for me, Sable could survive that poor performance because its slow, methodical gameplay and its expansive environments meant that performance dips weren't too keenly felt. Stray is a little faster than Sable, and it's certainly more cloistered in its level design, and swinging the camera from one dark hallway toward a dense midtown hub is going to create these wild, sometimes disorienting swings in performance that did take me out of the experience. As I've said on more than one occasion in the past, if a game is good but it runs poorly, it's worth waiting for it to run well before you dive in. I really wish I could have experienced this a little later, after performance improvements had rolled through, because Stray is really, really good, and much of its appeal lies not only in the beauty of its world, but in the spry, fluid movement of the cat. Unfortunately, these performance swings did compromise both of those things more often than I would have liked. Stray begins here on the outskirts of the city, chilling with your cat buddies and doing nice cat things. You're living the dream here with your friends when suddenly one flat-footed moment sees you desperately cling to the life you had before tumbling into the abyss. You awaken in a dark and more hostile locale, the city. People lived there once, but they're gone now, and in their place are robots who go about largely human lives, working jobs, thoroughfaring, panhandling, or just enjoying a relaxed loiter by the side of the street. There's a sense of sadness and defeat in every robot you encounter, and for good reason. They're all of them trapped there, the sky above taken from them, forced to live out eternity under both darkness and the tyrannous yoke of a force known only as the Sentinels, whose job it is to maintain order in these back alleys and neon-lit streets. Enter you, a cat, on a quest to reunite with his buddies on the outside. That more humble goal quickly unfurls into a grand quest when you unite with your little drone companion, unsure of his past but certain it has to do with bringing back the sky. Together the two of you strive to bring hope and sunshine to the robots you meet, all of whom have their little part to play in this tale of rebellion and liberation. I really like when games are able to tell effective stories in very few words, and Stray excels in this regard. The history of this world is briefly explained to you, but if you were paying enough attention to the offhand comments of the robots you talk to, or you stop to soak in just some of Stray's environmental storytelling, you really don't need these explanations. You can intuit the suffering of those you meet by their hunched shoulders, their aimless walks, the way they huddle for warmth under old blankets. You don't need to be told that things are dire down here. You can see it and feel it for yourself, and in just 4 hours and through a script no longer than a few dozen pages, Stray was able to tell one of the more compelling stories of any game I've played this year. Perhaps part of that comes from how voyeuristic Stray's tone is, mirroring the voyeuristic nature of cats themselves. Cats are generally pretty quiet, certainly more quiet than dogs. They sit and watch and listen, and that's what you'll do here in Stray. Just sit quietly and watch things unfold. There are no big reveals here, no sudden plot twists. It's a rather plodding tale that unfolds very much as you'd expect it to, but it's deftly told, and it leaves enough gaps in the telling that you can fill it with your own imagination. Stray allows you to take control of a cat. You can't customize or name the cat, it's just the cat. And I was really impressed by how well Stray delivered on this cat roleplay experience without ever overdoing it or becoming a parody of itself. There's a seriousness to how this animal is portrayed here. It doesn't have big, googly Puss in Boots eyes, it doesn't have superpowers, it doesn't talk, it's just a cat. And that's really nice when set against this fantastical, neon-drenched, dystopic robot world. This flesh and blood creature is a bygone relic. Its very presence a reminder of a time when organic life thrived. Were this cat riding a hoverboard or spouting catchphrases or bending time with the help of a vacuum cleaner, I suspect Stray wouldn't have had nearly the same emotional resonance that it managed to achieve with this very plain, very ordinary, very real feeling cat. I think the genius of Stray, and I suspect it's going to be overshadowed by the rest of the game's elements, is that Stray understood that the way cats move through space is inherently really suited to a video game, and that you don't need to augment that with double jumps or jetpacks or whatever. So the developers just built their entire game around the way a cat moves, and it works beautifully. In real life, cats don't just jump straight up for no reason like an Italian plumber might. They sort of square themselves up for a moment before jumping up to things. And so it is in Stray, where the jump button only works when there is a reachable surface above you. This naturally creates a level design challenge for the player, which is the backbone of Stray's gameplay. You'll very often know where you need to get to, but you'll be searching for the ledges, shelves, boxes, or girders that will help you reach that spot. It's kind of like Uncharted in a weird way, though a lot more restrictive. That restrictiveness can be a little frustrating at times. On occasion, there are tense chase or stealth sequences where the seconds count, and in those instances, you do wish that you could quickly dismount an object with the jump button that just worked, but until you find the exact spot where you can use the jump button, then you're kind of stuck there, leading to some deaths that will make you groan a little. These are very few and far between though, and on the whole the story of Stray's traversal isn't centered on its shortcomings, but on how smartly it mirrors the way cats naturally move through the world, with the added byproduct of creating interesting, engaging level design puzzles. It's not just the jumping though. Cats are quite small, flexible creatures who are able to fit into really narrow spaces. Just as the level design puzzle is often about figuring out how to jump up to somewhere, it's just as often about looking for the upturned corner of a fence, the space between the bars, the gap between the books that becomes a thoroughfare owing to the fact that cats can squeeze through almost anything. In Metroid, this sort of thing is a power-up in the form of the Morph Ball, but here, it's just cat things. Finally, Stray really nails the different speeds at which cats can move. You can move the analog stick just a little to slowly walk forward, pushing the stick all the way puts you into a gingerly stroll, and holding down the right trigger puts you into a sprint that's fast, but it's not over-exaggerated. You don't dash forward suddenly, there aren't speed lines to create a stronger sensation of speed, it's just the cat moves faster. That's it. I know these are probably strange points to labor. You might be like, dude, yes, it's a cat. We know, we understand. No need to explain it. Please move on. But my point with all this is that when we typically control characters in video games, be they human, animal, or otherwise, the movement systems for those characters are just standard video game movement systems. They aren't based on the fact that the character is a bear with a bird in his backpack. Like, Naughty Dog didn't start by saying, so, how do bandicoots really move? They just made a cool character that was fun and for some reason could spin in circles really fast. But Stray's developers really did start with that question. How do cats move? And they were clever enough to realize that cats already have a pretty video gamey kit. The quiet confidence in the capabilities of cats is brilliant, and I think it's going to see this title age so beautifully because the core of the gameplay is based on that timeless grace of cats. The cat people out there may be wondering to what degree Stray indulges in what we might call cat fan service. And I have to say that while it does indulge, it certainly isn't indulgent. This brief prelude is one of the more charming moments in the game where your cat lolls and purrs and arcs as they soak up the afternoon sun and chill with their homies. Later on, various spots in the game will give you the opportunity to do cat stuff, typically that scraping of your claws thing I showed in the intro, but also naps. There's lots of nap spots in Stray, and the very nature of them showcases just how aware these developers are of people's desire to roleplay as cats, but also an awareness of just how beautiful this world is, because every nap spot will slowly pull back the camera, allowing you to soak in these really stunning surroundings. So, is Stray anything more than just jumping on boxes and napping? Yes, it certainly is. The traversal and exploration puzzle is the most common one you'll encounter in Stray, but in addition to that, you'll also encounter what I'll call narrative puzzles. You'll arrive at these urban hubs populated with a handful of robots, and a number of them have problems that need solving. A busker wants sheet music, and you can hunt around town to find them and bring them to him. Only one of the songs is hidden in a safe, and the only way to get that safe open is to find someone who knows how to crack the code, etc. There's no quest log, no experience points or upgrade tree, just little clusters of people which each house a small number of interlocking requests, and bit by bit you'll solve them, and then you'll move on to the next hub. It's all wonderfully paced since you get plenty of clues as you go. I never found myself stuck on anything obtuse, but nor did I find myself patronized by being force-fed the solution too quickly. It was all very well handled. There's also a number of logic puzzles that you'll encounter. More traditional third-person adventure stuff like moving boxes onto plates to unlock things, that sort of thing. There are also a number of tense chase and stealth sequences, which were real highlights. Parts of the city have been overrun by these head crab looking things, and at times you need to madly dash from one safe zone to the next. At other times, you need to complete objectives in these dangerous areas, and you need to sort of herd these head crabs since they aren't particularly smart. Later on, the Sentinels will become aware of the threat that you pose and will begin hunting you, setting up for simple but effective stealth scenarios. None of these things are at all challenging. You might die a few times, but not many. Stray is always wanting to push you forward at a pleasant canter, and every aspect of its gameplay, from exploration to narrative puzzles to more tense sequences, find the right balance to see you move through them without being either over or underwhelmed. I've already spoken about how much Stray excels in its narrative, its core gameplay, and the variety of gameplay scenarios that it throws at you, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about these environments. When we first saw this, we all collectively referred to this as a cyberpunk world, but that's definitely not the right descriptor. Cyberpunk is a kind of snapshot of a society in its death throes, where technology and late-stage capitalism have transfigured every aspect of life, and everything now feels like it's on the brink of collapse. Stray is set in that post-cyberpunk period, where the collapse is complete, and now the machines have inherited what we left behind. This makes it feel colder and more sterile, but also more beautiful, because the world can be viewed through the prism of hope rather than through a lens of doomed inevitability. Stray is an amalgam of different locales, from sewers to subways, from factories to prison yards, from town centers to hidden oases. All of them are so strikingly distinct in their level of detail and their use of color. Even simple, unremarkable hallways become remarkable if you look at them for long enough and really soak up just how much has gone into creating them. It's the level of detail that no open world game could ever afford, and one of the biggest benefits of linear experiences such as this. Think the Resident Evil remakes or A Plague Tale. That's what that style of game is capable of achieving in terms of visual density, and Stray absolutely exists in that same space. I wish I had better words for it, but the truth is, I just absolutely loved looking at this world. It is so beautiful in every moment. As much as I enjoyed being this cat and the cleverness of the level design, I think more than anything else, I just enjoyed slowly making my way through this world they built for us. Every time I'd exit a hub and a new chapter title would splash on screen, I'd be really excited to see what new part of this world lay in store for me. And to be clear, it's not the pretty lights, though they are pretty, sure. It's about the subtle beauty that you find along the way. The hidden libraries, the little apartments, the graffiti on the walls, the green shoots you find as you make your way through the sewer. That's what I meant about the prism of hope I mentioned earlier. There's this one moment in the game where you arrive at this hidden village, which is built around a silo at the base of a sewer, and it's impossible to look at this and despair. The story of this world isn't its collapse. That story has already concluded. You arrive when this world is beginning its rejuvenation. Its subtle stirrings can be seen everywhere you look if you have eyes for it, and that fledgling promise makes this world more beautiful than any neon light or shiny surface ever could. Finally, I really have to shout out the soundtrack. The music you're hearing in this review as backing music or during the montages isn't from the game. It really bums me out that I couldn't get access to those music files for this review, because Stray has an absolutely superb soundtrack. I'm sure part of that take is because this music is very much my jam, but I think it's more than that. This is such an interesting soundtrack that lays down a distinctive template. Like, if you were to play some of this music on a black screen at the Game Awards in a few years' time, I'd be like, oh, Stray 2, here it comes. It just has a signature, and it's a real achievement when any game can land on that. What impressed me most about the soundtrack was how in sync it was with the rest of the game. It set the scene so perfectly, it paced things so perfectly. It was present in your ear, but at the same time, never so present that it seemed like the soundtrack was trying to steal the show. It all felt so harmonized with everything else that Stray had to offer. I think that word sums up Stray as a whole actually, harmonized. The way this cat moves feels so authentic, and the level and puzzle design is built around that authenticity so neatly. There's a variety of gameplay scenarios that the game moves between so deftly, such that you'll never feel frustration or repetition set in. There's a narrative here that's just enough to engage you, but not so much that it might ever stall you. There's a world here that is so diverse to wander about and explore, but its spaces all feel so grounded and connected to one another. Stray is just this kind of Goldilocks experience. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. Interestingly, I think that will be where some of the discourse around Stray centers, that it's just a nice game in an almost pejorative sense, that it does everything well, but that it's ultimately just 4.5 hours of walking around as a cat in a pretty world. I can understand that reading, and I suspect some people will end up there, which is fine of course, they wouldn't be wrong. That's not my takeaway though. I think to create something that feels just right is really, really hard. And the more time I spent with Stray, and the more I thought about why I was enjoying it so much, I appreciated more and more the craftsmanship that's gone into this thing. I think it's a really wonderful game, and an amazing debut for Blue 12 Studio, and I recommend it to you. Alright, so this is a true story. My PC died. I got back from LA, booted it up, was playing some Destiny PvP when boom, bye-bye PC. You can say the Destiny jokes, by the way, I know what you're gonna say. Point is, for the last month, I've been using a laptop as my main driver for playing, recording, and editing, and I haven't had to make any compromises because I've been using the all-new MSI GT77 Titan, which is basically a high-end desktop PC in laptop form, so it runs circles around absolutely anything I throw at it. The MSI GT77 Titan really is the ultimate play because it comes with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 Ti GPU. That is crazy. That is one of the most powerful GPUs on the market, and they managed to somehow squeeze it into a laptop chassis only 23mm thin. NVIDIA's GPUs are the unparalleled leaders in their field, not only because of their raw processing power, but because of the new technology that NVIDIA keeps bringing to the table. Stuff like Max-Q, which is a unique technology that optimizes the performance and battery life of gaming laptops, just like the GT77. Then there's stuff like NVIDIA DLSS, which provides a massive uplift in performance depending on which game you're playing. For example, when I played Guardians of the Galaxy on an NVIDIA GPU and turned DLSS on, I got a 50% increase in frames, which is gigantic. Equipped with an Intel i9 processor, the GT77 is intended to be a sort of desktop replacement because it's packed with desktop caliber performance and expandability, with 4 memory slots and 4 M.2 slots supporting up to 128GB of memory and up to 32 terabytes of storage. So you can have basically your entire Steam library installed all at once, or just like 3 copies of Call of Duty Warzone. To top all of that off, the GT77 looks great, and it feels really nice to use owing to its tactile RGB backlit keyboard and large responsive trackpad. This really is the sort of upgrade that not only does everything you need wherever you want to do it, but it's gonna last, because the specs on this thing are so high end that you're kind of future-proofing yourself for at least the next 5 years of gaming, and likely many, many more beyond that. If you want to check it out, then click the link below, and be sure to check out MSI's full range of laptops to see what they have on offer. Thanks MSI and Nvidia for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.